Romero was my inspiration for proposing back then to President Brother Ray that we create a human rights studies program. Romero's influence is why we have the Archbishop Romero Human Rights Award. And Romero's influence is reflected in the Human Rights Center's mission insofar as the mission includes dialogue with the Catholic social justice tradition. So I want to just make clear that Romero is present here. He's incarnate here, if you will, in these institutions. And so it's remarkable that we have this anniversary. So to understand Romero, you have to understand the national crisis. Now I want to take you back to February 1977 for a minute because it was an incredible time. El Salvador, this tiny, poor country already in crisis, was going to have a presidential election, sure to be fraudulent, and the appointment of a new archbishop. Ironically, both were named Romero. The presidential candidate, the choice of the oligarchy, was General Carlos Humberto Romero, who was the oligarchy's choice because he was Minister of Defense and he was good on repression. Oscar Romero was the oligarchy's choice for archbishop because he was known to be a conservative priest. The fraudulent election was the 20th of February. Romero had been archbishop for 3 weeks. Thousands of people turned out in San Salvador to protest the fraudulent election. The National Guard opened fire on them in front of the National Cathedral and killed 400 people. If you studied the history of El Salvador at the time, not a month went by without some new atrocity for campesinos. Read Romero's homilies. They read like reports of Amnesty International. But think about this now. You have one of the most powerful institutions of Salvadoran society, the church, breaking with the state. Essentially, under Romero, the church had delegitimized the regime. He won the affection of the poor, right? He met with them, he interacted with them. The poor loved him and came to see in Romero the symbol of their own cause for justice. He encouraged them. Romero encouraged them to defend their own rights. Romero is encouraging the very people the security forces are killing. At this point, Romero becomes one of those agitator priests. He supported the clergy and the religious and the laity's efforts to do pastoral work in the countryside, something that he seemed not to want to do when he was Bishop of Santiago de Maria. Suddenly, he was behind the cause, right? And he defended the priests, and the religious, and the clergy who were persecuted themselves. Many of these people were killed. He defended against charges of communism, right? In other words, he became their public spokesman. Romero became the most important politician in the country because of his moral voice and his office. Right? He became dangerous. When Romero spoke, when he denounced the regime, when he defended the popular organizations, with that international stature, he became deadly. 17th of February, 34 days before his assassination, his martyrdom, Archbishop Romero writes to Jimmy Carter as a Christian, right? And he appeals to the President of the United States to suspend military aid to El Salvador. There wasn't much. There wasn't much. They were sending non-lethal, right, aid to the National Guard who was killing people. And he appealed to Carter not to send aid. And he denounced the government as a military dictatorship, worse than a previous military dictatorship, that was killing so many people. And he gave death tolls. So here you have, I mean, this is a direct threat to the military. The military in El Salvador knows the guerrillas are forming, and it's facing the prospect of a civil war which it's not prepared to fight. And it needs military assistance from the United States, which is concerned with preventing another Marxist revolution like the one in Nicaragua happening in El Salvador. And the Archbishop appeals to the President of the United States not to send military aid? This was incredible. 34 days. I mean, I'm convinced that his death warrant was signed then. And finally, not his final sermon, because he died giving his final sermon on the 24th of March at a funeral. But on the 23rd, in the cathedral, broadcast over the radio, you should read it, you should listen to it, gave an incredible speech. It sounds like Amnesty International report talking about the massacres. But at the end, he makes a special appeal. He says, I want to make a special appeal to the men of the National Guard. You are our brothers, and you're killing your campesino brothers. No one is obligated to obey an illegal order that conflicts with the law of God, thou shalt not kill. Romero's going to be a saint because he was a martyr. And he was a martyr because he was a prophet. And he was a prophet because he was a pastor. And in the national crisis in El Salvador, to be a pastor meant you had to be a prophet. And to be a prophet meant you would be killed. Thank you.